Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Your liberty-loving Latino amigo. Happy to be here with you this Monday night. We're live, we're national. Here's the phone number, 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. And what a busy weekend I had. Lots of news today. We're going to get into a lot of stuff. Just wanted to give a couple of shout-outs to a few people. I'll do that in a little bit. I want to start off with the news, though. And the news, man, the United States stopping aid to the Ukraine. This was a very interesting thing. Now, President Trump making it pretty clear in a statement that he made in the Oval Office today regarding what it's going to take to restart negotiations with Vladimir Zelensky. Volodymyr. Listen to this.
What do you need to see from President Zelensky to restart these negotiations?
Well, I just think he should be more appreciative because this country has stuck with them through thick and thin. We've given them much more than Europe, and Europe should have given more than us because, as you know, that's right there. That's the border. This country really was like the fence on the border. It was very important to Europe, and I'm not knocking Europe. I'm saying that they were a lot smarter than Joe Biden because Joe Biden didn't have a clue. He just gave money hand over fist, and they should have been able to equalize with us. In other words, if we gave $1, they should have given. Well, we gave $350 billion. They probably gave $100, but on top of it all, they get their money back because they're doing it in the form of a loan, and it's a secured loan. So when I saw that, which I've known about for a little while, I said it's time for us to be smart.
The president wants the United States to be smart. I couldn't agree with that more. The Trump administration pausing all aid to the Ukraine. And I guess it's not the Ukraine, it's Ukraine, including weapons in transit or in Poland until Ukrainian leaders show more appreciation for U.S. support and a commitment for peace. And I think really the commitment for peace is what it is, right? That was the number one complaint from the discussion last week was he's not committed to peace. Now, this pause comes, obviously following that contentious meeting. And President Trump has been clear. And this is a quote, let me see, from a Fox News article here. President Trump has been clear that he is focused on peace. We need our partners to be committed to that goal as well. We are pausing and reviewing our aid to ensure that it is contributing to a solution. And I think that's a good idea. It's a very, very good idea because I don't want to join the beat up Zelensky chorus, right? The conga line. Not that I like him per se. I just don't think it's productive. I don't like Putin either. So I think we need to come up with a good solution. And I think Trump came up with a good solution that Zelensky doesn't like. So now Putin's got his own solution, and he's offering, his type of deal, or at least suggesting that there might be a deal. Similar, right? Similar type of deal. And I guess that's how you do it, right? The ultimate idea here, I think, is to get to both of them to say, I am not going to destroy the other guy. I'm no longer going to bomb this place. We're not going to do whatever. And I know there's a lot of people out there, a lot of ideas, and that's fine. Ultimately, it's got an end. It has to have an end. There has to be an off-ramp. The whole thing needs to stop. How do we get there? I wish I knew. I think that the right idea would be, and I guess I'm wrong, right? It's probably my own naivete, but my idea would have been for Trump to be a little more heavy-handed, right? Or whomever the leader of the free world was, right? I would have thought that Joe Biden, honestly, when this thing was going down, that he would have, picked up the phone and brrr, das vidanya, Vlad Putin. Hey, Vlad, how you doing? It's Joe, El Baboso, Biden. Yeah, you know the thing. And they would have a conversation. And he'd say, look, I know you're flexing your muscle. You're trying to get something done. I'm telling you right now, we're not having a war. If there is a line that's crossed here, I'm going to have to do X, Y, and Z. Please don't force my hand. But he didn't do it. And I think this is the reason why Trump's constantly saying, constantly, this would never have happened if I were president, because he would have taken that type of action. Now, I get it. When you're the sitting president, you have that leverage. He's now the sitting president, but it's ex post facto in many ways, right? This war's already started. He's trying to clean up someone else's mess. So he doesn't have the same bargaining position, but he has plenty of position. And I think he's using that. And he's trying to be as, I guess, even-handed and non-dictatorial as one could be, trying to really get towards peace. Because I don't see him doing anything authoritarian. I honestly, I probably would have been wielding a lot heavier hammer. So for the critics out there, you know, my critique, if I have one right now, is that maybe Trump needs to push Zelensky harder. Right? Maybe he needs to push the Doge Committee harder. If I had a critique, that's what it would be. So I'm wondering, what is the latest development with Putin? What is the latest development with Ukraine? Will Putin step up and say, nah, forget it. If this guy doesn't want to play ball, I do. Here is the deal. Here's what I want to do. Right? Because I think he's been relatively quiet. I mean, I did see one statement over the weekend that Vladimir Putin put out, indicating that the reason, you know, Zelensky did not want to end the war was simply because he's got martial law enacted, and that prevents elections. So he gets to remain president. And he's basing it all on numbers. He's saying he knows he can't win. He needs to get back into a place where he can be popular, and he doesn't want to lose. And that's what this is all about. That may, in fact, be part of the case. But it's not my problem, right? That's their internal problem. My problem is my country giving money for good money after bad, right? Money for naught. That is what I think is the issue here. I think we got to help. We got to help. We got to help. All sorts of help. That help can include sit down here. Let's have a conversation. That help could be a lot of things. That help could be Trump saying, hey, let's put together a rare earth minerals deal. All those things are great. Doesn't mean we have to give you an unending amount of money. It doesn't mean that we have to sit here and watch. Now, we do have to provide help. We have to provide some sort of defense. That's part of the agreement that we entered with the Ukraine, with the Budapest Memorandum of Security Assurances. And I for one, I don't care, excuse me, I, for one, don't believe that it's good business, good politics, good policy, good karma, good juju, whatever, for us to make a commitment in 1994 and then come back on that now. I think that's a bad look. So we'll get into that a little bit as well. I got a little file tape of on that Budapest stuff from then Senator Rubio. But straight ahead, I want to talk to somebody who knows this stuff inside and out, somebody who's really plugged in, somebody who's been an intelligence officer at the DIA, the Defense Intelligence Agency, and is fantastic on these issues. She's literally wrote the book, Putin's Playbook. So we're going to connect with her shortly. So keep it locked right here. Plus, your calls are coming up after that. 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Well, thank you, Rich, and thank you for everything. I know you very well, and I listen, but I have a lot of people that listen, and they love your show, and I appreciate it very much.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Are you considering canceling military aid to Ukraine? And can we get a reaction to what the Kremlin just said, that your administration is bringing U.S. worldview in alignment with Moscow's?
So this is a deal that should have never happened. This is a deal that would have never happened. And it didn't happen for 4 years. It didn't happen. It was never even close to happening. If I were president, it would not have happened. and October 7th would not have happened in Israel, and inflation wouldn't have happened. And Afghanistan, disastrous, the way they withdrew, not the fact that they withdrew, but the way they withdrew would have never happened. And we would have had Bagram right now instead of China having it. It was 1 hour away from where China makes their nuclear weapons. We would have kept Bagram, with one of the biggest air bases in the world. All of these things happened, and it's a shame. But it is what it is, and now we're here. I want to see it end fast. I don't want to see this go on for years and years. Now, President Zelensky supposedly made a statement today in AP. I'm not a big fan of AP, so maybe it was an incorrect statement, but he said he thinks the war's going to go on for a long time. And he better not be right about that. That's all I'm saying.
That is President Trump in the White House responding to the question, are you considering pausing aid to the Ukraine? And guess what? It has been paused. It's not a permanent pause, but a temporary pause to all Ukraine aid until they are committed to peace. Now, in the meantime, there's reports out there that Russian President Vladimir Putin is suggesting that he's open to cooperating with the U.S. on a rare earth minerals deal in a video that's out there. I'm not sure how authentic it is, but I've seen it, and I'm reading from an article that is citing it. And this is on the heels of what happened with Zelensky not putting his best foot forward, in my opinion, on Friday. So I want to get to the bottom of this. Is there a Putin deal or not? And is there an end in sight to all of this with somebody who's an expert on this? She literally wrote the book on it. She's the author of Putin's Playbook and the host of Censored But Not Silenced. Rebekah Koffler is a former Defense Intelligence Agency intelligence officer. She's been with us before, and she's got a book coming out this summer called Trump's Playbook, Destroy the Deep State. Rebekah Koffler, welcome back.
Thank you very much, Rich. Pleasure to be here with you and the audience.
Thank you. So let's talk about this. So aid has now been temporarily paused to Ukraine following the debacle that ensued in the White House with Volodymyr Zelensky and President Trump and Vice President Vance on Friday. And now there's some grumblings that Russia's looking to do a rare earth mineral deal. What do you know about this? What can you tell us?
Well, first of all, Zelensky basically was disrespectful to President Trump, and that's why he was booted out of the White House. Regarding the minerals deal with Ukraine, before I get to the one with Putin, the truth is Ukraine has no rare earth minerals. Mm-hmm. I repeat, according to the Geological Survey, Ukraine has zero rare earth minerals. What it does have is some critical minerals, but most of them are in the Russia-controlled territory. So Zelensky, the con artist that he is and has always has been selling us something that he doesn't have. Moving on to Putin. Yes, of course, Putin wants to make a deal with Trump. He wants to be seen next to the leader of the free world and sit, at the table with the big boys, as the President Trump is offering him that opportunity. He does want to conduct transactional relations with the United States, and there's precedent for that. The Russians have been selling aluminum until the sanctions, until Joe Biden has ruined the relationship with Russia following Putin's invasion of Ukraine. There's plenty of precedents of the Russians dealing with the United States on transactional basis, whether it's space industry. We have been buying from Russia what's called RD-180 engines that go into the space launch capabilities that we use to launch our top-secret satellites into orbit. We also were relying on the Russians from space transport during the Bush administration. We were paying $50 million per astronaut per seat to launch them into the ISS, the International Space Station. Yes, it is possible to strike a deal with Russia, whether Russia would actually be willing to sell us actual rare earth minerals, which, unlike Ukraine, Russia does have, remains to be seen, because Putin's standard line has always been that the West wants to take Russia's natural resources and just use it as a commodities market, and what Russia doesn't want is just become a colony. That has been since his standard line. So I would proceed very, very cautiously and trust by verify. Well, don't trust. No, I never trust Putin. Just basically proceed very cautiously and verify every single step.
Rebekah Koffler, I just want to make sure I clarify what I'm hearing. So you're saying Zelensky is talking about a deal that Trump is also talking about for rare earth minerals, things like, the 17 rare minerals that are rare. And you're saying he might have some critical minerals, but he doesn't have rare earth minerals.
That is correct. You can right now, and if you want to go into my Twitter feed or X feed, at Rebekah0132, I actually posted a page out of the geological survey from 2025, January 2025, that has a list of countries that do possess those rare earth minerals. Ukraine is not on that list. It's very simple. There's just no mistake about it. And the Fortune magazine actually also put out an article that talks about the critical minerals that Ukraine has that we could possibly strike a deal, but it's going to be a very high risk, low reward deal, and President Trump will likely be out of the office by the time that that deal is struck. It's also, Ukraine does not have any kind of processing facilities, and we would have to invest a lot.
I get that part.
So basically, by the time it's all said and done, it's not going to be a profitable deal for us. So my recommendation would be to actually focus on our own rare earths. We do. The United States, we have those. But right now, unfortunately, that industry is stifled by regulation, by, mining permits. There's all that red tape. So we need to unleash our own industry rather than deal with Ukraine or with Russia, because that part of the world it's extremely, and as you know, I'm originally from Russia. It's extremely difficult to deal with Russia, with Ukraine, and do any kind of business in that part of the world because of the corruption. Ukraine is the top corrupt country in Europe, and so is Russia.
Yeah, a lot of people share that opinion as well, that Ukraine leads the way in corruption. Folks, we're on with Rebekah Koffler. She's a former Defense Intelligence Agency intelligence officer and the author of several books. She's coming right back with us. We're going to continue the conversation with her just right after this. Don't go anywhere, folks. I'm Rich Valdez.
Congratulations on just an amazing show. I know you've worked so hard in the industry, and nobody deserves it more than you do. So I'm happy to see you really succeeding here. It's awesome.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Do you know what the United Nations resolution was? I'll tell you if you want to hear what it was. It basically said this has been a horrible war. It's time for it to end. The job of the UN is to bring about peace in the world. I thought that's what the UN was created to do, to stop wars and to prevent them. And that's what the resolution did. Was it antagonistic towards the Russians? No. Back to the point. But it also didn't praise the Russians. All it said is, this is a bad war. It needs to end. And by the way, at the Security Council, which has not been widely reported, the first resolution on Ukraine that has passed the Security Council in 3 years, passed this week because of the leadership of President Trump. And it's a resolution that says, bad war needs to end. Let's bring the two sides together.
I agree with that. Bad war needs to end. Let's bring the two sides together. Our guest is Rebekah Koffler. She is a former DIA intelligence officer. She's expert on this stuff. She's written Putin's Playbook, she's author of the forthcoming book, Trump's Playbook to Destroy the Deep State. And Rebekah, when you hear Secretary Rubio having this conversation with George Stephanopoulos just yesterday, do you think the UN is going to have any positive impact at all?
The UN on this peace process, it's not going to have any positive impact at all. They're just trying to sabotage President Trump's peace plan, but they don't matter. They're really irrelevant. President Trump is very determined to stop the bleeding of Ukrainians and also to stop the bleeding of the U.S. Weapons stockpile, which the Biden administration has done by flowing billions of dollars worth of military hardware to Ukraine and depleting our own arsenals of very, very dangerous levels. So that's what Trump is doing. He's not afraid of words, of being called, pro-Putin or whatever. He is just methodically working on this deal, trying to bring Zelensky, back into to the negotiating table. That's why he canceled or rather suspended military aid to Ukraine. So he is determined, and hopefully he will get it done. It's not going to be fast. With that one, I will give Zelensky. Zelensky is correct. It probably was not a good idea to say that out loud publicly. But it's not going to be fast, but President Trump is determined, and hopefully he'll get it done.
Now, I want to talk a little bit about the popular opinion, right? I remember just from history, the Budapest Memorandum of Security Assurances and a particular speech that is making its rounds on the internet lately of then Senator Marco Rubio. I want you to listen to this. It's Marco Rubio on the Senate floor. It's a file tape.
When the Soviet Union fell in the early 1990s, Ukraine was left with the world's third largest stockpile of tactical nuclear weapons and strategic nuclear weapons on the planet. But they signed this agreement with the United States, the United Kingdom, and Russia that basically said, if you give up your nuclear weapons, we, these three countries that signed to this, will provide for your defense and assure you of your defense. And so Ukraine did that. They gave up these weapons. Well, now, this was signed in 1994, 20 years later, one of the three countries that signed that agreement hasn't just not provided for their defense, they actually invaded them. And I want to make a point on this for a second. Think about if you're one of these other countries around the world right now that feels threatened by your neighbors. And the United States and the rest of the world are going to you and saying, listen, don't develop nuclear weapons. Don't develop nuclear weapons, South Korea. Don't develop nuclear weapons, Japan. Don't develop nuclear weapons, Saudi Arabia. We will protect you. We will watch out for you. What kind of lesson do you think this instance sends to them? I think the message this is sending to many nations around the world is perhaps we can no longer count on the security promises made by the free world. Perhaps we need to start looking out for ourselves. And that's why the Ukrainian situation is so much more important than simply what's happening in Europe.
Implications around the world. Now, Rebekah Koffler, the deep state tried to delay the playing of that tape, but you got to hear it. And this is, I guess, the big conundrum that we have. We have this commitment that we've made with other partners. The other partners have seemingly abandoned the commitment. The United States, in my opinion, should not abandon that commitment, but it also doesn't mean that we have to become their partner in the war financially to the tune of $350 billion. So what do you think is the geopolitical solution to resolving these this particular agreement?
Well, the solution is very simple, and that's what President Trump is trying to do, is to compel the Europeans to start paying for their own security, and that would serve as a deterrent to Putin. Look, it's the Europeans that abandoned Ukraine, not the United States. They are the ones who promised to provide security to Ukraine. Mm-hmm. But what happened was, even though NATO knew 10 years prior to Putin's invasion of Ukraine in 2022, they knew what was going to happen. They knew Putin's plans. They knew Russia's warfighting strategy. How do I know this? Because I personally briefed them in September 2013, just months prior to the invasion of Crimea by Putin. And yet, they decided to proceed, drinking their espressos and not building up their weapons arsenal, not beefing up their force posture, not developing a counter strategy to Putin's playbook, and it's a disgrace. So what actually they were doing, they decided, oh, how nice, we're just going to let Ukrainians do the fight for us. The Ukrainians ended up in Putin's meat grinder. They basically served as a human shield against Putin, protecting the Europeans who didn't want to pay for their own security. So, on the nuclear issue, Putin is not suicidal. He's a rational actor. Yes, he's a dictator. He's all of those things that Lindsey Graham and Biden and all those other people want to call him, but he's a rational actor. Look how calibrated his strategy has been in this war. He was very, very reserved. He didn't pop any nukes, despite the fact that President Biden authorized Ukraine to use U.S. long-range missiles to strike deep into Russia. Okay? By that, Biden basically demonstrated to Putin that his decision was correct to invade Ukraine, because Ukraine has served as a strategic security perimeter for Russia for centuries. Okay? And, but no, he's not suicidal. What he is trying to do is actually have Ukraine be a neutral state. He would accept that. But regretfully, former President Biden, Obama, and it actually started off with Bush in 2008. They kept pushing Ukraine into NATO, and Putin said for years it's a red line, and then they didn't listen. Putin didn't do anything during Trump's first presidency because Trump was not in favor of Ukraine becoming part of NATO, because that would lead to World War III. And that's why President Trump told Zelensky, you're playing with World War III. So it's a very, very simple solution. Be a transactional player with Russia, de-escalate, and there won't be any. No, well, let me caveat this. Europeans, first and foremost, need to beef up their security and pay 5%, right? Putin is an opportunist. If he sees a vulnerability like he has, in Europe, then he may invade, right? Depending on how strong he thinks the defenses are. On the one hand, he doesn't want, to have NATO respond with full force to the invasion. He hasn't, Ukraine right now is not part of NATO, right? If it became part of NATO, we automatically would be at war with Russia. Right now, Putin is not going to invade Latvia, Lithuania, and the Baltics or Poland, because he's not suicidal. But if going forward, Europeans continue to ignore their own security, I do not rule out the possible. And Russia actually is pumping out more missiles in 1 month than the entire NATO alliance produces in 1 year. So if that disbalance continues, then I don't rule out the possibility, and President Trump, leaves office, I don't rule out the possibility of Putin invading another country. Therefore, it is imperative for the Europeans to start producing more weapons and start actually developing strategy, because just providing security indefinitely as long as it takes is not a strategy.
Right. It's a non-starter.
So everybody needs to get serious about this.
Now, Rebekah, I have a question for you. Final question before we wrap is, there's been a bunch of videos all over the internet, and I know with any war, there's a propaganda war as well, an information war. And but a lot of these videos have a similar theme, and they show soldiers that the caption alleges are Ukrainian soldiers grabbing men off the street, young men, older men, because they've run out of soldiers and they're using conscripts or, drafted people. But better said, it seems like they're kidnapping men off of the street to get them to fight. Now, I don't know how realistic this is. I don't know if that's Russia putting it out. Some are saying, no, that's actually what Russia's doing to keep feeding the meat grinder of the war. What do you know about it? What can you tell us? 1 minute to you.
They both are doing it. It's 100% correct that Zelensky SBU, Служба безпеки України, which is his security service, is grabbing Ukrainian men off the street because they're running out of people. The average age of a Ukrainian soldier is 45 right now. So both Putin and Zelensky are doing that. Well, Putin doesn't have to grab people off the street because he is luring them with enormous bonuses. Okay? But no, it is not propaganda. It is exactly why President Trump called Zelensky a dictator without elections, because Zelensky outlawed elections. He outlawed the Ukrainian government's ability to negotiate with Putin. He outlawed all political opposition parties. He outlawed Russian TV, even in an area that is populated by Russians in Ukraine. And so, yes, his services are grabbing Ukrainian men and to throw them into Putin's meat grinder to continue this war. It's 100% correct.
Wow. Rebekah Koffler, former intelligence officer in the United States Defense Intelligence Agency, thank you for being with us. When your book comes out this summer, Trump's Playbook, Destroying the Deep State, I can't wait to talk about it. Thank you, Rebekah.
Absolutely.
My pleasure. Always good to talk to you. And amigos, we continue with your calls and more. 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. No hair, no care, and live on the air, it's Rich Valdez.
US President Donald Trump has unveiled plans for a new crypto strategic reserve, hinting at 5 cryptocurrencies: Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, Solana, and Cardano as key assets. Now, the announcement triggered a sharp rally in crypto markets, with some coins surging up to 62%, while Bitcoin gained up to 10% following the announcement.
All right, that is a report on the announcement by President Trump. That was from WION, the World Report there. President Trump making the announcement that a United States crypto reserve is imminent. This is good news, and it sent cryptocurrency prices soaring for a little bit after the announcement, leveling out after that. And Trump saying on Truth Social last night that the Trump administration is working towards creating a crypto strategic reserve that will include lesser-known cryptocurrencies like XRP and Solana and Cardano. He later followed up with another post saying that his planned reserve would also include Bitcoin and Ethereum, two of the most popular cryptocurrencies. The announcement helped crypto prices enjoy a very nice rebound. So good for them. And it also got me interested in, because I was just telling during the break, I was telling my producer, Count Delacula, that my brother has been hounding me forever, telling me, listen, you've got to buy some XRP and you got to get it now because it's going to go up really fast. And I said, why? He said, because Trump is going to include it with the United States currencies. And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. And he's like, listen, he was trying to explain it to me, but I got two left feet for so many things. And I didn't get it. I finally started to understand it a little bit. But the easiest thing to understand was I opened an account to be able to buy crypto, and I bought some, and it went up. And that's great. XRP looks like a pretty solid thing thus far. We'll see. And it's cheap. It's very cheap. So, I mean, if you get it for a few bucks and it doubles, you're doing great. And you can buy a lot of it for a little bit because it's pretty cheap. But anyway, the announcement is a big deal. Now, this comes just days before you've got the White House Crypto Summit. White House Cryptocurrency Summit this Friday in the White House. And one of our regulars here on this program, the host of Wise Guys on Newsmax, John Tabacco, my buddy's going to be at the conference. Now, I don't know if we're going to be able to get him live from the conference, so we might have to wait till Monday because he's doing a lot of schmoozing and the dinners and all that. But if we can get him, I'm going to get an update on what's going on at the actual conference, because I got to tell you, a lot of people have made a lot of money on cryptocurrency, and a lot of people, like me, are very skeptical, right? They hear, they go, I don't know about that, so I'm not interested in that. Now, there's some people that are interested in things they don't know about, but most people are just like, I'm going to stick with what I know, right? Maybe I'll go buy a rental property. Maybe I'll go do this. Maybe I'll precious metal. All good. But I remember years ago, it was 2013, and I met a guy who had retired. At the time, he was 44, and I was younger. And he told me, I said, you retired already? That's good for you, man. And he said, yeah. I was able to made a couple of good investments, and I'm good. And I said, well, give me a tip. What should I get? And he said, listen, there's only one thing you should buy. I said, what's that? He said, Bitcoin. I said, what's a Bitcoin? And he said, it's a cryptocurrency. And I said, what? And he started explaining blockchain and crypto, and I didn't get any of it. All I know is at the end of it, he said, listen, if you can buy yourself one Bitcoin, they're $4,400. Just go buy yourself one. Today, they're $90,000. And, up and down from 90 to 100. Would have been a really good investment. Anyway, folks, I am coming right back. Your calls and more, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
And tariffs are scheduled to go into effect. So I'm going to have a whole bunch of conversation on that. Now, folks, for many of us here, this is the end of the road, right? Some people have to go to work. Some people have to move on. For others, they're able to stick around and they can hear more of the show. Because different stations play the show at different times, I don't know if I'm saying hello or I'm saying goodbye. But I am going to say that I want you to tune in to the show. And anytime you want to catch any part of the show, even if you only catch a portion live at work or in the car on your way back and forth to work, you can always listen to the podcast. And you get that at richvaldez.com. And you could sign up for the podcast, subscribe, stream it right from the website. You can get the whole thing. Anyway, folks, like I always say, hasta la próxima. Until the next time, take care, good night, and God bless you, America. I'm Rich Valdez. And for some of you, I'll be right back.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome back, continuing the conversation this Monday night. We're live, we're national. Happy to be here with you. And the phone number is 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. And we're going to get into a bunch of stuff tonight. Hopefully we'll get into a little entertainment, make fun of some of the things that went down at the Oscars, maybe a little bit later. We'll talk about the U.S. cryptocurrency reserve. We'll talk about tariffs. We'll talk about a little throwback Trump. I saw a clip of Trump over the weekend, and every now and again I see these clips, from back in the days. But I saw one I had not seen before of Trump on Donahue. That was really, it was really good. It was an eye opener for me because I thought, man, it's just yet one more video from Trump back in the days. While some of the actors have changed, the story remains the same. He keeps talking about other countries having to pay their fair share so that the United States is not invested in protecting people, providing this, doing that, and that they pay instead of us paying. And it just shows, if nothing else, Trump is remarkably consistent. Listen to this.
Jim Wright has asked you to host the Congressional Democratic Committee big hula bula in Washington, D.C. You turned him down. That's right. Boy, I'll tell you. Did you call your father before you turned him down? Your father is, in my opinion, the personification of the entrepreneurial spirit working in partnership with the government that gave housing to all those hardworking blue-collar people in Queens and Brooklyn.
You don't have
and
programs.
His beloved son Donald is building on Fifth Avenue.
But Phil, you just don't have the programs anymore. You used to have a lot of government programs. I built a lot of the housing. You're right. Maybe you're absolutely right.
But you turned it down.
It's absolutely necessary. But we can't be defending Japan, and we can't be defending Saudi Arabia and the Persian Gulf and everybody else and think that we're going to have low-income housing for people, which is desperately needed. Other countries have to pay us for the services we're rendering, or this country is going to go right down the tubes, and that is a shame.
And we'll be back in just a moment.
That, again, is Donald Trump, a young Donald Trump, probably in his early 30s, mid-30s, maybe 35-ish, and on the Phil Donahue talk show. That was back when, if you wanted to be on a talk show, it had to be at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, right? It was Donahue and Oprah, and then there was Sally Jesse, Rafael Geraldo for a little bit. It was such a big game. I remember that. I was like, what a cool job. These people just walk around, this live studio audience. I was so enamored with that as a kid. I just thought, what a cool gig. Anyway, El Trompito, remarkably consistent. And it just goes to show you that, back then he was a Democrat, right? That's why the Democrats were inviting him to speak at their big hullabulla. And the reason he turned it down was because he didn't agree with their stance on that. So while some of the names have been changed to protect the innocent, the story remains the same. He's remarkably consistent on people paying what they have to pay, on the United States making money and not losing on the deal. And I think that's a good thing. I love the fact that it's not easy to put together a flip-flop reel on Trump. He tells it like it is. That's probably what angers most people, but he tells it like it is. And you got to respect that. You really do. Now, telling people like it is something he was doing earlier today in the White House as he started discussing manufacturing. We've got tariffs that are about to go into effect. Some tariffs go into effect now, or today, I guess, tomorrow. And then some go into effect on April 2nd. Listen to this.
I mean, it's going to be very costly for people to take advantage of this country. They can't come in and steal our money and steal our jobs and take our factories and take our businesses and expect not to be punished. And they're being punished by tariffs. Tomorrow, tariffs 25% on Canada and 25% on Mexico, and that'll start. So they're going to have a tariff. So what they have to do is build their car plants, frankly, and other things in the United States.
Building car plants in the United States. Well, guess who's coming to Indiana, which happens to be in the United States? Honda. Honda coming to the United States. Apple moving back to the United States. Check this out.
Honda announced they're coming to Indiana because of the tariffs. Once again, you bring in additional jobs in manufacturing. You want to comment on that as well?
Well, Honda's coming, and I told you about Apple, that they're going to be starting to build massively here, $500 billion. And we have many other companies going to be announced, but we had many that have already announced. And no, it's going to be great. It's looking really strong. I don't think this country has ever seen anything like we're seeing right now. Now, the tariffs, as you know, will start a week earlier than the reciprocal, which is going to be on a couple of weeks earlier. Reciprocal tariffs start on April 2nd. And I wanted to make it April 1st, but I didn't want to go April Fool's Day, because that costs a lot of money, but that one day. But so we're going April 2nd. But very importantly, tomorrow tariffs 25% on Canada and 25% on Mexico, and that'll start. So they're going to have a tariff. So what they have to do is build their car plants, frankly, and other things in the United States, in which case they have no tariffs. In other words, you build, and this is exactly what Mr. Wei is doing, by building here. Otherwise, they'll build, if they did them in Taiwan to send them here, they'll have 25% or 30% or 50% or whatever the number may be someday. It'll go only up. But by doing it here, he has no tariff, so he's way ahead of the game. And I would just say this to people in Canada or Mexico: if they're going to build car plants, the people that are doing them are much better off building here, because we have the market. We're the market where they sell the most. And so I think it's going to be very exciting for the automobile companies, very exciting for, I can think of any, as an example, North Carolina, they had I used to go there to buy furniture for hotels. And it's been wiped out. That business all went to other countries. And now it's all going to come back into North Carolina, the furniture manufacturing business.
So that, again, is El Trompito, showing that you can bring deals back to the United States, industries back, manufacturing back to the United States. Look at that. All it took was the threat of some tariffs. So way to go, United States. Way to go, El Trompito. And he continues to fight this war, right? It's not just a fiscal war. It's not just to increase GDP. It's not just to secure America, to secure the border, to secure us globally, to fight back against the woke agenda, to push back on DEI, to do so many things, right? There's a whole culture war going on outside, and it's a pretty serious deal. And, you take 2 steps forward with executive orders for DEI and lawsuits and this and that, and the left will come and make you take a few steps back. And that seems to be the dance we're taking, but I think we're still making headway, honestly. Maybe it was an overstatement of mine to say 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. But I'm sure that's what the left would like. But very, very interesting. And, the DOGE folks, the Department of Government Efficiency, or also known as the USDS, the United States DOGE Service, their initial findings on Department of Defense DEI spending could save $80 million. Look at that. So more on that when we return. We're going to discuss some DEI plus the rest of the news of the day. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
By the way, your ratings are up. Congratulations. It's always nice to check. I like to see, even if they're friends, I like to see how are they doing. Are people listening, right?
That's
but
right.
You're doing great.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. Rich Valdez live with you for, a couple more hours. We're live until midnight in some markets, 1 a.m. in others. And your calls are welcomed, 833-482-5337. Now, I want to get into this DEI stuff because DEI, transgenderism, the woke mafia, the attack on the family, it's I'm painting with a broad brush because it's affecting so many different parts of our family, of our lifestyle, of our country, of our culture. And DOGE, right, the Department of Government Efficiency, USDS, United States DOGE Service, has some initial findings on Defense Department spending of DEI dollars that could save $80 million, according to the team. Much of their findings have been flagged by DOGE are connected to DEI within the Department of Defense. And the Defense Department has been working with Elon Musk and his team of DOGE people in slashing the wasteful spending. And DOD spokesman Sean Parnell recently said this in a video that was posted to social media. Now, I'm glad we're doing it within the government because it's necessary. I'm glad we're doing it anywhere we can. I'm just wondering if this effort is enough. Now, I want to bring in somebody who's an expert on pushing back against the culture. She knows this really well. Matter of fact, yesterday she won an award. I was sitting in the front row at the Queens Village Lincoln Dinner, the 150th annual Lincoln Dinner in Queens. It's a great club. It's actually the oldest Republican club in America, the Queens Village Club. They had their 150th Lincoln Dinner. Phil Orenstein and the guys, Joe Concannon, really good guys. I've known them for years. And it was great to see Tiffany Justice, one of the co-founders of Moms for Liberty, who's now a visiting fellow with the Heritage Foundation, accept this award. And I think we need 1,000 more Tiffany Justices out there, right? Pushing back on the culture and doing things for God, country, and the flag. So let us bring in our guest, Tiffany Justice. Welcome.
Hey, thanks, Rich, for having me tonight. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. So I want to get your take on something that I think is burning at a lot of people, right? I think this bothers a lot of people from so many different angles, right? You've got a school district in Maine, you've got swimmers, you've got the NCAA, and I think President Trump's been firing on all cylinders. And my question is, do you think it's enough?
I think President Trump is doing a wonderful job really setting the course for the country. He's responding to a mandate that was given to him by the American people. And the issues that you just talked about, these are 80-20 issues. And what I mean when I say that is 80% of Americans are with President Trump on these issues. And so what you're seeing right now are these blue states. You're seeing a lot of woke people that are fighting back. When you back a rattlesnake or something into a corner, it's going to strike back, and that's what's happening right now. And they're going to lose. But the president is charting the course. He's writing the executive orders. They're putting them out. And now it's our job to codify those executive orders into law, how we need to do that, and then to really be the watchdogs. And we can talk a little bit about some of the different, tools that are being given to the American people by the president, by different members of his cabinet in order to be able to hold lawmakers, governors, and others accountable.
Yeah, I would. I'd like to chat a little bit about that. But first, I want you to listen to a clip I have because there's this case in Maine, and I want to get in, and we have a little bit of time, so I want to kind of methodically work through this stuff because you know it better than most. And I find it interesting. They're trying to hide the identity of some of the students that are claiming to be transgender. So I'm going to play a clip of that, once we wrap up this conversation on the tools, because I think it's important that people use every tool that's available to them to push back. And like I said, I don't think Trump is doing anything less than a miracle, honestly. I think he's doing a great job. I'm just saying, is the federal government's push enough? I think we need more activists, more people in action, more Moms for Liberties chapters and that type of thing. But tell us about the tools that you just mentioned.
Yeah, so the president just, the Secretary of Education, Linda McMahon, was just confirmed today. So I think you're going to start seeing some really amazing things happening in the Department of Education.
Outstanding.
But some of the people that have been kind of acting as interim, you mentioned the acting director of the Office of Civil Rights, Greg Traynor. Others are doing a lot of different things in preparation of Linda joining, trying to gather information, right, and trying to stand for the laws and the regulations that are currently in place. So the Biden administration rewrote Title IX. They rewrote Title IX to say that they redefined sex to include gender identity and sexual orientation. That opened up bathrooms, locker rooms, sports teams to boys, saying that you couldn't discriminate against someone based on their gender identity. A couple of things that are really important for people to understand that are listening. Gender identity isn't real. It's not a real thing. It's totally made up. It's pseudoscience. Gender ideology is nonsense. There's no such thing as a transgender child. I'm going to say something else that people need to understand. There's no such thing as a transgender adult. There are ova and there are sperm. There's XX and XY. There's no other gender. There is no other sex. And so we have people who believe that they're transgender. You know what? There are people who are anorexic that think that they are overweight, and they're not. And so we're dealing with mental illness here, and we need to be kind. We need to be compassionate, and we need to get these people the real help that they need. But by indulging this fake idea, we're not actually addressing the real root issue, which is mental illness, which is something that someone's struggling with. The Biden administration rewrote Title IX. It was completely unconstitutional. There were lawsuits all over the country. Moms for Liberty was involved in one of the lawsuits. We got a preliminary injunction, and we were able to say that any school that had a child of a Moms for Liberty member attending could not implement the new Title IX regulations under the Biden administration. Well, not long ago, a court out of Kentucky, I believe, and it was said that they vacated the entire rule. That court said it was completely unconstitutional, and there was a rollback to the Trump-era Title IX regulations that protected women and girls, and also made sure that there was due process. What due process means is that people have an opportunity to be able to have their voice heard, their side of the story heard, and that there's an ability to be able to navigate the legal system and have representation. We had situations on college campuses where you would have someone that was taking in a report about sexual abuse or sexual harassment. They would act as the judge and the jury. And for whatever reason, the Biden administration also decided that they weren't going to require law enforcement to be involved if there was a claim of sexual harassment or abuse. I don't know about you, but I'm a mom of a lot of kids. 4 kids, 1 daughter. If my daughter was sexually assaulted, I wouldn't want the police to be immediately involved. I wouldn't want the school or the college to be handling it separately. It doesn't make sense what the Biden administration did. Well, we're very lucky that rule was vacated. Linda McMahon does not need to go through a process of rulemaking again and taking in, hearing from the public, going through a public comment portion of time. Now that rule is done. We go back to the Trump era Title IX rule. So that's federal law that trumps the state law on these issues. So you look at a situation like Maine, they're going to lose. That's what the president said. Janet Mills in that room, you saw her say, I'm following state law and federal law. He said, we are federal law. I am federal law. And she said, well, I'm going to follow the state law. And he said, well, you're going to lose. And she said, we'll see you in court. And he goes, great. That's a great one. And then you also heard him say, we're going to hold you accountable beyond that, because President Trump knows that he has the ability to be able to work within the realm of politics. And so I would imagine that they're going to work really, really hard to get some new leadership in Maine. And I think the people of Maine, and we're up there, and we have chapters up in, Moms for Liberty has chapters up in Maine, and the people, they don't support it.
Outstanding. Tiffany Justice, stand by. I want to continue this discussion on Maine because I think you're right. The implications are going to be serious because people aren't on the side of this issue. Amigos, we're going to continue our conversation with what's going on in Maine and do parents have rights with Tiffany Justice. She's the co-founder of Moms for Liberty and a visiting fellow in parental rights at the Heritage Foundation. Don't move a muscle. I'm Rich Valdez.
Who again will do a fine job, and I know you'll enjoy listening to him.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
That letter was sent to Maine Education Commissioner Pender Macon. Says the federal office will make sure taxpayers are not funding blatant civil rights violators. The acting assistant secretary for Civil Rights, Craig Traynor, says if Maine wants to continue to get federal funds from the Education Department, it has to follow Title IX, or he says Maine can trample the rights of female athletes. As far as MS 8051, Superintendent Jeffrey Porter says today, first and foremost, he wanted to express the school district's unwavering support, as he called it, for all of its students, and then said the district will continue to abide by state law. We've heard that, of course. Superintendent Porter says he has been talking with the state and Maine Principals Association over the last couple of days, and this decision is at their direction. The MPA announced earlier this month that they would defy President Trump's executive order on transgender athletes participating in girls' sports. Porter said he's been told there's no anticipated changes in the state's direction on this in the near future.
That is a report from WMTW, Connor Clement in Portland, Maine. And again, that was a little bit of the pushing back of the governor and her people after that exchange that Tiffany Justice just mentioned in the White House. We have a clip of that as well. Check this out.
The NCAA has complied immediately, by the way. That's good. But I understand Maine. Is the Maine here, the governor of Maine? Huh?
Down here.
Are you not going to comply with it?
I'm complying with state and federal laws.
We are the federal law. Well, you better do it. You better do it because you're not going to get any federal funding at all if you don't. And by the way, your population, even though it's somewhat liberal, although I did very well there, your population doesn't want men playing in women's sports. So you better comply because otherwise you're not getting any federal funding.
See you in court.
Every state, good. I'll see you in court. I look forward to that. That should be a real easy one. And enjoy your life after governor because I don't think you'll be in elected politics.
And there you go with the political implications. Tiffany Justice, welcome back. Co-founder of Moms for Liberty and, of course, visiting fellow now at the Heritage Foundation. We're talking about what's going on in Maine. And again, Maine, I think, is just one example of several that are trying to push back and perhaps with limited options. What say you?
Yeah, he wants to be a big shot. Governor Mills wants to be a big shot. Great. We'll see you in court. I really don't understand. Again, Democrats are going to lose elections over this. Today, there was a bill that was voted on in the Senate to make sure that men do not play in women's sports. Not one Democrat voted for that bill. They are going to lose elections over this. It is only a matter of time. The people of America do not want this. So you really have to ask yourself, why? Why is this the hill that they're willing to die on? The American people don't want it. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but doesn't really bother me because, to be honest with you, I'm tired of the Democrats having any power at all. And so if they lose elections over it, so be it.
Now, I want to ask you, what do you posit is the why? Because, you know, I'm always at a loss here. I've heard many different conversations about this, and honestly, all of them, none of them make sense at the end of the day. If everybody doesn't want it, or most people, the majority of people don't want it, why bother?
Americans are rejecting communism. We're rejecting Marxism. We're rejecting socialism, but these are Marxist, socialist, communists. This is Marxism. It is the destruction of the family unit. It is the destruction of everything that we know to be good and true about Western civilization. You watch what's happening on these college campuses, the anti-Semitism that you're seeing. It's a war against Jews, but more broadly, it's a war against Western civilization. And so I just think that there are people that want to radically transform America. They do not believe that America is a good country. They do not like the values that we stand for. They want to break the family unit. And you know, I mean, you look at LGBTQ, LGB, sexual orientation, T, as we've mentioned, mental distress, Q, a political ideology that has no limiting principle. It's why the pride flag changes and has, you know, how many colors on it now, and now has something called MAPS, minor attracted people instead of pedophile. They can't take a stand against anything. There is no limiting principle. And so, again, these are people that want to radically transform the country. They take any avenue that they can in order to try to break what's good and beautiful and true about America. And this is just one more thing that they're trying to do and push. But I do think that, again, I'm very happy about it, to be honest with you. Let them continue to push, and they'll lose elections, and we'll win. And they will lose federal funding. I have no doubt the president will, you know, and Linda McMahon will pull the federal funding for education. But I would think Maine should take a step back and know that President Trump means business. I don't think they just lose federal funding in the education realm. I think he looks to pull federal funding in every way that he can to that state until they comply with the federal order.
Tiffany Justice, part of what you just mentioned here, just to follow up to that, I think is one of the reasons that I hear often is this normalization of language or even theory around something you mentioned around minor attracted persons, MAPS, and this normalization or seeming normalization of not only what we once used to call alternative lifestyles or gay, now is, you know, just an acronym of things to kind of soften the blow. But now you have pedophilia and you know, the stark difference that they're making between people that like kids and then the people that actually go and assault them or hurt them and rape them. And I think this is a very, very slippery slope that most normal and sane people wouldn't ever go near. But yet it seems like, I feel like there's not enough alarms being sounded. Or do you think I'm alone here?
No, I think there aren't enough alarms being sounded. I don't know if you saw, I was on Joy Reid. I had a conversation with her last year in January. She had me on, and we were talking about this book. It's called All the Boys Aren't Blue. And a young man in the book, the main character is it's a late night show, so I'll say he's anally raped by an adult family member. And she said, well, what if a child needs this book? They feel seen by this book. And I said, Joy, if a child feels seen by this book, that means that they've been the victim of a predator. And she pushed back on me. And I said, why? The bottom line is we have a lot of children that are being hurt in this country. When you look at gender ideology, when you look at the children that succumb to this idea of having a gender identity or being transgender, a lot of these kids have been victims of sexual abuse. We're not talking about that. We're not talking about the fact that children have really been violated and abused in the United States, and it's somehow been normalized. You have the Epstein files, right? You have Andrew Tate flying into Florida now, and he's been accused of victimizing young women. And so I just think there needs to be more accountability on how we protect children. We need to protect the innocence of children, and we have a group of people who want to say that children have rights outside of their parents, that they have the right to sexual citizenship. That's something that's taught in something called comprehensive sex education in our schools. You have that happening in New Jersey, in Maryland. You have, Pride storybook collections happening in Maryland. Right now, there's a case that the Supreme Court is willing to hear, Mahmoud versus Montgomery County. You have parents who are saying, we don't want our kindergartners being taught that they might be a boy, might be a girl, or maybe neither or both, and being taught, being read books called Pride Puppy in kindergarten. And there's a question about whether or not those parents can opt out of those lessons. Is it a violation of the religious liberty of parents? Yes, I think it is. But more broadly, it's a violation of parental rights and of the children's medical care and mental health care. We're introducing children to a lot of graphic sexual content at younger and younger ages. And we're going to go back to the Marxism part. We're going to talk about the fact that this is an effort to destabilize the child, to open them up to a lot of different things that a parent would never open them up to. So I think the time is now where parents are going to stand up and start protecting the innocence of children, and we're going to ensure that America is a safe place for kids.
Outstanding. Tiffany Justice, I appreciate that, and I know there's a lot of controversy around a lot of the stuff we're talking about, but I think it's an important conversation that we have to keep having. Can you please tell everybody how they can keep up to speed with the scholarship that you're putting out from Heritage and everything else that you're working on?
Yeah, so starting a parental rights coalition at the Heritage Foundation is such a wonderful organization that's been a huge supporter of Moms for Liberty, and I really feel like they are the outpost for Americans in Washington, D.C. If you're not familiar with the Heritage Foundation, go to the website, check them out, and I'm very excited to be able to take all of the things that I've learned working with parents across the country at Moms for Liberty and to broaden that scope and work with a lot of other groups across the United States of America. Also really excited about working more with dads. I feel like men have been pushed out of conversations when it comes to children in America. The feminist movement, I'm not a big fan. And what they think, I think they said to dads was basically like, abortion, a woman's issue, kids, a woman's issue, education, a woman's issue, gender ideology, a woman's issue. No, that's not the case. We need strong men in America. So excited to highlight them. So follow the Heritage Foundation. If you want to get involved in that parental rights movement, you can let them know, and you can be a part of the work that I'm doing there. Moms for Liberty is awesome, momsforliberty.org. I will always be a wonderful part of Moms for Liberty. The women are the bravest women I know across the United States of America, and I think they were a big part in helping President Trump get elected. And then people can follow me on X primarily at the number 4 Tiffany Justice. And I try to keep people abreast of all of the things that are happening around parental rights and around children and family.
Outstanding. Tiffany Justice, you are a gentlewoman, a scholar, and a patriot. I want to thank you for being here and keep doing what you're doing. God bless.
No, thanks a lot, Rich. Appreciate it.
You bet. And congratulations on your recognition yesterday as well.
Oh, yeah, that was such an honor. The Queens Republican Club rocks.
Amen to that. Tiffany Justice, everyone. And folks, your calls and more are coming up right now. 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
After the guest leaves every night and we're doing open phones, kind of at the heartbeat of America. And you sit there in this radio studio and suddenly you hear voices. Mobile, Dallas, New York, Miami. And there's kind of a conglomeration of America all in one room.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, America, welcome back. Rich Valdez with you. And again, the heartbeat of America, right? The wise words of Larry King. And always a big shout out to Larry King. A big shout out to Jimbo Hannon. Let's use his phone number here. If you want to join the show, come back and give us a call. 866-50-JIMBO, 866-505-4626. And that's our legacy line. It's always available. And I welcome you to call. I want to go to the calls now. Let's go to Sarah. She's calling us from Deming, New Mexico, KNUW. Go right ahead.
Hi. You asked a question, how come the Democrats want to see so much sexual perversion among the children and convince them to change their gender? And I think I have an idea that I've never heard anybody else say. I think it's eugenics. I think that they want to sterilize the kids because they come from families with 3 or 4 generations of welfare takers or criminals or drug addicts, and they.
But what about all the rich
kids,
people? Like all the rich people that have kids that are claiming to be trans and dealing with gender dysmorphia?
I didn't know it was rich people. I hadn't heard any details about it.
Oh, really? The most famous ones are. If you look at the son of Dwayne Wade, the multi-million-dollar basketball player from the NBA, his child has been transitioning quite publicly. And there's many. And it's a very expensive process to transition. If you do a quick search on most of the social media, you'll see a lot of these. I've never seen someone of color, honestly, which typically are the inner city, right? The poorest neighborhoods in America. I've never seen a black mom or a Hispanic mom say, I'm going to call my kid it until they're old enough to choose their own gender. It's always white liberals. And I don't know that they're poor, I think oftentimes they have enough money to pay for hormones. They have enough money to take their kids to these ritzy hospitals that have these crazy DEI doctors that are willing to, engage in what they call gender-affirming care and all of that craziness. So I agree with you that it's an evil practice, but I don't think it's about eugenics. I don't think that they're being sterilized either. I think they likely won't reproduce because of the obvious. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Thank you, Sarah, calling us from Deming, New Mexico, KNUW. Let's continue. Let's go to Gary, Ashburn, Virginia, WMAL. Go right ahead, sir.
Hi, Rich. I just wanted to riff on a previous comment by the expert, Chris. Was it Elizabeth? Doesn't matter. The flag.
Tiffany Justice.
9 colors or the 11 colors of the flag of the LGBTQWXYZ people is like NATO. NATO. It's an attack on one of us is an attack on all of us. That's how they've created a very large block of what are individually teeny slivers of the American population.
Yeah, that's a good point. And this again is a communist tactic of getting these workers of the world unite type of thing. Get everybody with a grievance together, and we've seen probably most famously the lesbians. I've had lesbians on this show. I've played audio. Martina Navratilova, the famous tennis player, she was really against being part of. She didn't want to be part of the LGBTQ acronym, and was saying, no thanks. I had another person on the show that said, look, I'm gay and I like women. And I'm in the business of liking women. I don't want to be associated with people who think I'm gender fluid or any of these other things. And I understand it. I get it. And, the Trump administration just, putting an end to a lot of these diversity, equity, and inclusion things is, to use your words, stopping this attack on America. Because it puts the kibosh on the government funding, allowing, normalizing, and encouraging a lot of these things. So I think that part is accurate, right? I think it is getting people together, like you said, normally would be a small minority of people, and getting so many small minorities together that you've created a coalition.
It's NATO. Yeah. If you want to see somebody get really angry about this, they despise lesbians and gays who don't play along with this game. That's when they want to kill them, and they have signs in their parades that say kill them. So, yeah, it's not a friendly group. You join us or die.
I haven't seen that, but I do know in any faction, any radical group, there's always somebody that's off the deep end there. But thank you, Gary. I appreciate it. Ashburn, Virginia, WMAL. Thanks for dialing in tonight. And let's see, we'll take a pause right here. We'll come back with the rest of your calls and more. 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. This is America. This is Night. This is Rich Valdez.
All right, America, welcome back. It's Open Phones Across America, where you get to call and share your opinion, weigh in on just about anything we're talking about. We've had a lot of discussion tonight, and we've got more discussion to come. Of course, if you're not tuned in for the coveted third hour of this program, you're missing out. We're going to talk about the media, and oh my goodness, Joy Behar and all the crazy stuff she said about Elon Musk. Hopefully she's not going to get sued by Elon. And there's plenty more to talk about when it comes to the media. But I want to go to your calls. Let's go to Boise, Idaho, to our good, faithful friend, Paul, KBOI. Go right ahead, brother.
Thanks for calling on me, Rich.
You bet.
I wanted to comment on the big bill that they want to ramrod through. I kind of see it in a different way. I think that that might be.
What are you saying? Say it one more time. I didn't hear you. Who's ramrodding what?
Well, they're sending through so much money all at once, and the Dems, they already have it in for Trump as it is. And what I would say is try to take the Pelosi outlook on it, maybe cut it into three pieces or two big pieces, and send it through that way. What I don't want to see is the midterms cause a problem after the Trump administration is over. You follow me?
Yeah, well, I mean, this is inevitable, right? There is hatred against Trump. Trump is cutting the government. He's gutting the government. So government workers, and they're hitting me all over social media. And they're like, listen, I voted for Trump. I like Trump. I've been a Republican my whole life. My parents voted for Reagan. I'm this and I'm that. But I feel like I'm getting villainized by Elon Musk. I feel like I'm getting villainized by Trump. And all I could say is, listen, if your job is essential, you're in. If not, what do you want me to tell you? Right? We are all expendable one way or another. And what we have to do is post a win. The W's are necessary. More people have to be happy with what Trump is doing than those that are against him. The math is simple. Thank you, Paul. I appreciate it. Amigos, stick with me. It's Rich Valdez. Hasta la próxima.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to another hour of our program, our live national conversation at night. And here's our phone number, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. Give us a call if you want to join us. And happy to be with you this Monday night. We're live. We're national. It is 7 minutes past 11 p.m. right now. And big news of the day, at least of the evening, earlier this evening, we learned that Trump has paused all aid to the Ukraine. I was going to say to the UK. We should pause that too. But to Ukraine, pending Zelensky's approach to the peace process, which he seems disinterested in. And this is, I think, a big deal because I believe that this should worry President Zelensky. Of course, he'll continue his tour, going around saying, we need everybody to be involved. We can't believe that the United States is in the corner of Russia, blah, 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 right? That's the story they're going to sell. But ultimately, this is about us not giving any more money. Now, a little while ago, somebody was trolling on Twitter and said, how could you say all these things about Ukraine when you never say anything about all the money we give to Israel? And I thought, well, let's talk about this because I didn't know that we gave a bunch of money to Israel. I thought we'd entered into a agreement under Obama, actually, to do something like $38 billion over 10 years, which comes out to being like $3.8 billion a year. And, I mean, Israel makes plenty of their own money. And I know we provide things, and I know we sell them things. And I know they are an ally. And that's really the point I was making to the guy. It wasn't about the money, although it is about the money, right? You're talking about a $350 billion war in 3 years versus, I don't know, if you even want to include the whole 10 years, go right ahead. $38 billion in 10 years or $3.8 billion a year. That doesn't compare at all. It also doesn't compute. Israel is an actual ally, our strongest ally in the Middle East. What is Ukraine? Are they our strongest ally in Europe? Don't we have a bunch of allies called NATO? I mean, when we're looking at this geopolitically, their value is just not the same. Now, if you want to take me to task and say, is a human life in Ukraine worth the same as a human life in Gaza, the same as a human life in your house, Rich Valdez? I would say, of course it is. Human lives are human lives. I don't get to pick and choose, who lives and who dies. Unless you're coming for me or unless I'm in that position where I have to defend myself or I've been called to service. But outside of that, come on. That's a no-brainer. But that's not the question. The question here is, are we going to continue paying him? The answer is no. President Trump was asked today about pausing this aid shortly before he did it. Listen to this.
Are you considering canceling military aid to Ukraine? And can we get a reaction to what the Kremlin just said, that your administration is bringing U.S. worldview in alignment with Moscow's?
So this is a deal that should have never happened. This is a deal that would have never happened. And it didn't happen for 4 years. It didn't happen. It was never even close to happening. If I were president, it would not have happened. And October 7th would not have happened in Israel. And inflation wouldn't have happened. And Afghanistan, disastrous. The way they withdrew, not the fact that they withdrew, but the way they withdrew would have never happened. And we would have had Bagram right now instead of China having it. It was 1 hour away from where China makes their nuclear weapons. We would have kept Bagram, with one of the biggest air bases in the world. All of these things happened, and it's a shame. But it is what it is, and now we're here. I want to see it end fast. I don't want to see this go on for years and years. Now, President Zelensky supposedly made a statement today in AP. I'm not a big fan of AP, so maybe it was an incorrect statement, but he said he thinks the war's going to go on for a long time. And he better not be right about that. That's all I'm saying.
Of course, that is, again, President Trump today in the White House, keeping it real, keeping it gangster, keeping it 100. And I want to say I'm glad he did that. I think this is a necessary step in order to get Ukraine to kind of wake up and smell the coffee, right? Forget about coming to the table, because he came to the table, and I don't want to put it all on him. I think he really was ill prepared. I don't think he went there looking to sabotage things. I think there might have been I'm coming here with the hope of getting a deal, maybe not the deal they're presenting, but a deal that I'm hopeful I can get. And he was wrong. So then I think he had a backup plan, which was, well, look, I'm going to try and be as respectful as I can be, but I'm going to tell him my truth. And he told him his truth, and he did it to his own political advantage because he's got his own political situation going on. And I think Putin spent the weekend highlighting that. He was out there on all of his state media saying, you know, the reason this guy is out there and he doesn't want peace is because the minute there's peace, martial law goes away and he gets ousted from office. He's only in office because he's protected by martial law, and martial law suspends his elections. Now, I think Trump alluded to this a little while ago when the president mentioned that, you know, it's a dictatorial thing to do to behave that way. All good. They could trade all the barbs they want. I think it's great. But ultimately, you need everybody interested in the peace process. Or, like Trump said that day, you're fooling around with World War III. And if they turn their back, they, the United States, we turn our back on Ukraine and say, look, we're not doing this anymore. What are they then going to do? That is problematic. So I hope that the United States doesn't turn their back. I hope that we provide some sort of guidance, help, and support like Trump is doing by saying, hey, let's do this minerals deal, or hey, let's do this, or why don't we just sit down and talk, right, and come to a resolution on this? I think that right now that's the best help that we can give them. But cash or loans or aid other than, you know, what we can actually afford to give them, that's got to stop. This $350 billion in 3.5 years? Come on. This is insanity. Anyway, I want to continue. I want to get into the media because I did a segment on Newsmax yesterday. It was really fun. We were talking about how the media is melting down over Elon Musk and the Doge service, right? The Department of Government Efficiency and what they're doing. And everybody's, they're freaking out. And now they're literally using racist tactics. You've got Joy Behar saying that Elon Musk is an illegal immigrant who supported apartheid. And then you've got Joy Behar on The View being forced to correct her lies on live TV. Why? Because there's lawyers at The View now because they say so many things that are not accurate that they're forced to correct them so they don't get sued. Right? Because Trump is out there suing people and Musk is out there suing people, and good for them. These people can't just sit there and lie with impunity. Can't happen. And this is why I think it's so important for us to listen to the radio, right? To make sure we get everything. Because you watch TV, you might get sucked in on some of this stuff. Now, I know some of you may not really engage in The View. Others of you never watch The View. And then, of course, there's some of you that perhaps do. Maybe some of you like The View. I have watched The View. Right? I've seen Matt Gaetz on The View. I've seen The View a few times. It is an entertaining show. I laugh my butt off at how crazy they are sometimes. But nothing does it for me like radio. So if you love talk radio and podcasts like I do, the news, I recommend the C. Crane CC Radio 3. It delivers exceptional spoken word audio. The clarity makes it feel like your favorite host is right in the room. The CC Radio 3 pulls in long-range AM and FM stations with exceptional clarity and reception. And it includes emergency features like NOAA weather and the 2-meter handband. It runs on a power cord that comes with it and a set of batteries that last over 170 hours. The CC Radio 3 is considered the almost everything radio, quote unquote. So listen to your favorite hosts like me, your favorite podcast shows, your favorite music, and you can do that through any Bluetooth connection and from any smartphone and any speaker. If you want to order it, this is what you do. Order the CC Radio 3. Call C. Crane's U.S.-based customer service at 800-522-8863 or visit ccrane.com/rich. That's CCRANE.com/RICH. Use code RICH at checkout. You're going to get 10% off every order. Take two. Off every order that's over $75.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. The best guests, the best opinions. This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
And Elon Musk kisses his butt and strokes his tiny ego or big ego, whatever it is. And he doesn't get to he can take a nap while the guy was not born in this country, who was born under apartheid in South Africa, so has that mentality going on. He was pro-apartheid, as I understand it.
He's a naturalized citizen.
Right.
Now.
He's a naturalized
Now he's
citizen.
a naturalized citizen.
Oh, really? How did he do that? Did he come over the border legally?
Did he come over the border legally? Now, is that the whole cut? And this is, again, Joy Behar. She's questioning whether Musk is in the country legally. If he isn't, she says he was born in apartheid Africa and that he supports this racial segregation. I mean, the whole thing is just bananas. And then shortly after making all of these, in my opinion, incendiary comments, she has to walk it all back and correct her own lies on live television because she's told in her ear that she's not telling the truth. Listen to this.
Now I'm getting some flack because I said that Musk was pro-apartheid. I don't really know for sure if he was. He grew up at that time when apartheid.
I don't really know for sure. Hold on a second. If you don't know for sure, why would you say it? Why wouldn't you say, in my opinion, I think he was probably part of the apartheid, right? It's real simple. Now we know you think that. You made it sound like this was a matter of fact. Go ahead.
Apartheid was in full bloom before the great Nelson Mandela fixed that. He was around at that time, but maybe he was, maybe he wasn't. He might have been a young guy, too. Might have been. So don't be suing me, okay, Elon? They're allowed to say any lie they want, but we have to be really strict. That's why this show is important.
They're allowed to say any lie they want, but we have to be really strict in telling the truth. Oh, my gosh. Unbelievable. You have to tell the truth. She's literally asking for license to lie. Unbelievable. I want to get to the bottom of this because the media is out of control. And I guess those lawsuits, these multi-million-dollar lawsuits against them, didn't really help. It got them some lawyers, but it hasn't changed the tone of the left. The bigotry of the left remains. I want to bring in a guest. He's the executive editor at the Media Research Center, overseeing NewsBusters. Tim Graham, welcome.
Thank you.
So you hear this stuff from Joy Behar, and this is, in my opinion, it's the problem with the media. Maybe you see others, but what do you think of Joy Behar and her having to walk this stuff back?
Well, I imagine if you're a self-respecting journalist, you'd say she does not count as one of us. I mean, any journalist would say, you know what, instead of just popping off and not having any idea what I'm talking about, maybe I should Google this guy for 5 minutes. Maybe I could discover he left the country of his birth before he could be drafted in the South African military, perhaps to enforce segregation. His father was a politician who was anti-apartheid. She doesn't know any of that because she just gets up there and says, he's a foreigner, he's an invader, he's taking over. So the xenophobia you can employ as long as it's, somebody you don't like.
Right, exactly. And that's the part I find. They're bigger bigots than anybody else I've seen because it's kind of selective. It's like, I don't like you because. It's okay to be a racist because. And this is, again, I think it's just incredibly problematic, but also revealing, right? And it lets everybody know what we're dealing with. And just to take it a step further, I mean, any journalist would disown her. I think even her comedian friends would disown her and saying, if you're doing show prep for a show or any talk show, obviously I think you've got to do a little bit of research and find out what's going on. And that clearly wasn't done. Now, to me, Tim, this is, I think, part of the big issue that we see facing our country overall. And I would have hoped that some of these big lawsuits that came, with Trump winning, these judgments and others that have sued the media and won. And you would think that this would cause someone a pause, to be kind of taken aback and say, you know what, let me think twice. But I don't see that happening. Do you?
No, and I think the whole current trend begins with Nicholas Sandmann.
Yeah.
Who was the high schooler who smirked at a Native American, and somehow that was a hate crime. And the media, just as a mob, a lynch mob of us, metaphorically, just went after this kid whose offense really was wearing a MAGA hat. And the Indian or the Native American activist who was accusing him of racism, just didn't have a case, but they built it up anyway. Well, he was able to, because he was not a public figure, he was able to sue, and this Washington Post settled, and CNN settled, and this set up the thing that the CNN suit, where CNN settled with this guy who is getting paid by corporations to get their employees out of Afghanistan, and they suggested he was a black marketer, which would suggest he was a criminal, and that is defamation. And, they would say, well, you have to prove malice. Well, they had all the malice they needed in the CNN emails where they're like, we're going to get this guy. This guy is a jerk. We're going to get him. The malice was clearly there. And so and of course, yes, now Donald Trump is a public figure, but he's suing here and there and everywhere. And part of the reason for that is to just underline in the publicity that, that these people are recklessly anti-Trump. I think everybody knows that, but the media is so arrogant. We are the defenders of truth and justice and the American way and democracy. And that we can all see through that. You're slavish Democrat Party talking point repeaters. That's not brave advocates of freedom.
Yeah, 100%. Folks, we're on with Tim Graham. He's executive editor for the Media Research Center's NewsBusters. And I want to continue our conversation, Tim. I want to talk a little bit about your move and your reporting on defunding PBS and NPR and other things that you guys are working on. And I want to invite you all, the listeners, to call. Open phones across America is going to ensue thereafter. And the phone number for that is 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. And if you're missing any portion of the interviews that we're doing on this program and the 3 amazing hours that I have to spend with you all, make sure you check out the podcast. The podcast is available absolutely free of charge at richvaldez.com. That's Valdez with an S. And the music means that we're getting kicked out of here for just a couple of minutes, but we'll be back in 3 in 3. That's an ode to Chuck Woolery.
Across America to the liberty-loving Latino, Rich Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
The folks at PBS and NPR are doing pretty well for themselves. NPR just bought a $201 million office space just up the road from the Capitol. But they can't do it on the taxpayer dime, despite all of this money that the American taxpayer are giving to these left-of-center entities. Their viewership has declined. People don't need them anymore. But I do want to defund them. We're running a $36 trillion in debt.
That is the United States Senator from Louisiana, John Kennedy, today on the Hill talking about defunding NPR. And you know who else is talking about that? If you've been in the D.C. area, you may have seen the box truck with the ad on it that says Defund PBS and NPR. And it's from the MRC, the Media Research Center. And our guest is going to tell us more about it. Tim Graham, executive editor for the Media Research Center's NewsBusters, is going to tell us that what they're doing is working, because clearly they're talking about it on Capitol Hill. Tim.
Yeah, we had for 3 days last week, we had this truck going around, this billboard truck going around Capitol Hill, going around a couple of other D.C. locations. Most importantly, on Thursday, the CEO of NPR came for an interview with Semaphore.com. I was lucky enough to be in the room, but we were trying to make sure she saw the truck. But, who knows? She probably went down the parking garage, came up an elevator, and never saw it. But it is maddening that at this late date, we are still, as Republicans, as conservatives, libertarians, having to send money into Washington for this antiquated socialist propaganda system, NPR and PBS. And so the NPR CEO comes to this interview and he's like, well, what are you doing about bias? And Catherine Maher, basically had like 90 seconds of nothingness where she said, well, we have standards and we have committees that study the standards. And then we go to our local stations and discuss the standards. And it's like, that's nothing. That's empty, and that tells you the interviewer was not a good interviewer. I would have just, I would try to give her specific examples. Do you think NPR has been fair to President Trump? Do you think NPR was tough on Kamala Harris? Get specific a little bit that we can at least, and this is why they didn't want to do it. Yes, I thought we were tough on Kamala Harris. Okay, Newsbusters, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here's Asma Khalid doing a softball interview at the Christmas time. I mean, I got all the examples. They just don't want to put her on the record.
Unbelievable. Now, what do you think the likelihood here is of getting this defunded? I know that in the past there's been, pushes for this, and some have been successful, others not. But this seems to be one of the bigger pushes I've seen in a while.
Yes. I mean, we were way back in 1995 with Newt Gingrich. We were kind of optimistic that something was going to happen. This, I think we've sort of gone from hopeful to extra hopeful. You hear people like Senator Kennedy saying, I'm going to do this. The Republicans control the House and the Senate. They could simply pass a bill that says the Corporation for Public Broadcasting no longer exists. And that would be the end of that, or at least until the Democrats got in power and tried to restart the whole thing.
Unbelievable. It's a great time to be alive. Right? I know that the left within the media and critics of the president, critics of the president's initiative to create a Department of Government Efficiency, they're up in arms about the gutting of programs and wasteful spending. But I'm all for it. And I'm thinking, they might say, oh, my gosh, now they've eliminated NPR and PBS. We're only going to have Fox News and right-wing talk radio. Oh, my gosh, woe is me. They might even have to watch, some real news like Newsmax. But I'm hoping that they tune into things that are worthwhile, like MRC, NewsBusters, and this idea that none of us are getting funding from the government, but yet they have to survive, is just such a uneven playing field, wouldn't you say?
Yes, and I think that obviously if you take their federal funding away, NPR runs around and says it's 1%, which is a lie. Because the CPB sends money to the NPR stations, and the NPR stations send it back to Washington for programming costs. And so obviously they want not only as much money as they can. They call it public radio. Liberals don't want to be private, nonprofit radio. They want to be government radio. But yes, I think we can all underscore the injustice of this system if we said, okay, let's make sure that the taxpayers give $500,000 a year to Rich Valdez.
Yeah, no, I don't want taxpayers. I want advertisers, but I get it. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
But they would be like, how dare you? I don't want conservatives funded with government money.
We hate that guy.
Oh, really?
Right. Yeah, that's terrible. Unbelievable. Well, I'm hopeful that your initiative continues to take root and more members of Congress are swayed to support something like that, because while I think that there's a role for, the government and its media entities, Voice of America, the U.S. Agency for Global Media, things of that nature, and maybe even having a grant for a public broadcasting service, But a grant is not an entire funding source, and it's got to be something that the community wants to do, and maybe we help a little bit if we do something like that. But what we have right now, I think, is a complete propaganda operation that is taxpayer funded, that they're able to raise some money on as well. But ultimately, like you said, they get money in, they kick it back, they say it's this portion when it's really another portion, and it's the government funding this entire project that likely could not survive on its own.
Well, it certainly would have to be a lot, leaner and meaner. Well, they're plenty mean as they are right now, but I mean, I just think that it's let's stop the unfair competition. You know, my dad, when he was alive, worked for like 50 years for a private radio station, and it always kind of burned him that they were competing with government-funded radio stations.
Yeah, of course. They don't have to sell ads, right? They have a telethon every year. They bring their favorite famous people, and voila, there they go.
They have these underwriting announcements, and see, you can tell how biased NPR is because they'll be like, and your radio is funded by this corporation that's all for transformative justice and climate, initiatives. And you're like, oh, geez.
Yeah, and then you get a free bag, right, when you pledge.
I need a totem bag, yes.
Everybody needs one of those. Now, Tim, tell everybody where they could find more information about what we're discussing and everything else that you're doing at NewsBusters.
Well, we are at newsbusters.org. We have a special website now, defundpbsnpr.org, where you can sign a petition to join us on this campaign. And of course, now we have an X account, Defund PBS NPR.
Outstanding. That's defundpbsnpr.org. Defund PBS NPR on Twitter, known as X. Tim Graham, you are a gentleman, a scholar and a patriot. I'm grateful for the conversation. Godspeed, sir.
Thank you.
You bet. And amigos, your calls and more. We got 2 more segments to go. Open phones across America. I see calls from, Missouri, Arkansas, Florida, and more coming in right now. 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
You are educating the public, and the public is getting good information if they listen to your show.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. We continue with open phones across America, your calls and more. Let's go to Lake of the Ozarks, Missouri, KRMS. Jesse, go right ahead, sir.
Hey, what I wanted to say was, you know what Trump is doing with Zelensky is kind of like a dump truck driver.
Tell me more.
I've driven dump trucks, and sometimes they pay you to spread the gravel that you buy.
And sometimes they
don't.
All right, well, that one went over my head. Jesse, thank you, though. I appreciate it. Hopefully I'll get that reference eventually. I'm from New York. You got to forgive me. But thank you for the call, brother. Shout out to KRMS. And we continue. Let us go from there to Florida. Eduardo's calling us from Tampa, Florida, streaming the show, richvaldez.com. Go right ahead, Eduardo.
Yeah, Rich, good evening. Thank you very much. You know, this is a good story that President Trump can bring up to Congress tomorrow. There's been 10 heists over there in California, Arizona on BNSFL trains. ripping off designer shoes. So it's cost them $100 million. $2 million worth of Nike sneakers just came in Daily Mail over the weekend.
So we got train robberies all over again. Modern day train robberies.
Yeah.
Wow, that's something. Well, thank you, brother. I appreciate that. I'll look into it. That might be something to talk about tomorrow. And of course, yes, thank you for the reminder. We're going to have Trump's joint session of Congress address to give us what the State of the Union will be. And we'll be giving you, we'll carry some of that, of course, whatever airs as part of our show. And we'll bring you some analysis on people that are in the know, that are in the House, that are there and can comment on it. And we're going to give you the scoop. So thank you for that, brother. Let me see. Do I continue here or do I take a pause? I think I take a pause right here. And then we come back and then we go to Arkansas and we go to Arkansas again. And we go to some of the other callers that are on there. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Fair, balanced, and I love the way you conduct yourself with your listeners.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. We continue the conversation with you, all the American people. 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. Open phones across America. Let's go to Horseshoe Bend, Arkansas, KSAR. Check in with John. John, go right ahead. You're on with Rich Valdez. Welcome.
Hey, Rich, how you doing?
Good,
I think that the LGBT people, which I'm a bisexual, should not be pushed against, saying that they're terrible and this and that. I think the Democrats used us the same way they did with the blacks when Obama was working it. And, you have people that are hermaphrodites, which is a human being that has all their sexual organs, female and male. So that's proof that it's not just a mental thing. It's a chemistry thing. And that lady that you were talking with, I understand she doesn't want men in women's bathrooms. Neither do I. But you don't sit there and say, well, it's only a mental thing. And this is the way, I've been ever since I was 3 and 4 years old. I knew I was different. And so like
all right, but let me chime in here, John. Hold on. I just want to respond to some of what you said, because I think that this is an interesting thing. You're saying that it's not. I don't think I've ever said that these are terrible people. I've said that I think that gender dysphoria, according to the Diagnostic Statistical Manual, edition 4, says that it's a mental issue, that it's a mental disorder. It's a gender dysphoria, right? You don't feel like that's a mental thing. I'm not saying that's made up in one's mind. I'm saying that it's a mental condition, according to, the science, if you will. Now, the other part of it is, I don't know about you. Maybe you've had the good fortune. I have not. I've never met a hermaphrodite in my life, at least one that told me, hey, I have male and female sexual organs. If I had to guess what percentage of the world are hermaphrodites, I'm sure that it is, a small number of people. So I don't know that we could count the exception as part of the rule. But the other point about the being bisexual or whatever you said, I'm probably in the urinal next to a gay guy or a bisexual guy. No issue there, right? It's just guys. I think women just don't want to be in a bathroom with a man that is, going through a mental issue, believing they're a woman and trying to live as a woman because it makes them uncomfortable.
Yes, sir. And also, it should be, I'm not saying that men should be in women's bathrooms. I definitely agree with what she was saying on that. But
okay.
When she's not a doctor, she's not a chemist, I don't think.
Mm-hmm.
And she's giving an opinion that I don't know if she knows or ever has been with a person that has been gay or lesbian, and watching them through their lives as they transition to whatever they're going to be. And some people say things and they don't know the whole story about it. What do you think about that?
You know, I think you're right on this one, right? I don't think she's a doctor. I don't think she's a chemist. And I think I get where you're coming from, right? And where you're coming from is, irrespective of my issue, I'm a human being, and I think we ought to treat fellow human beings with respect. Now, this is a conundrum for me. Not a conundrum, but I find a difficult place to reconcile living life outside of my faith. My faith informs my worldview. So my worldview teaches me that I'm supposed to love my neighbor as myself, right? So love your fellow man, right? Love God, love people. I get that. Now, I may fall short of that goal, but that's my job to do that. So I get that, and I think you're right. I think it's important for me to love the sinner and hate the sin, right? I should never put you in a position where you feel like, I can't talk to this guy Valdez because he's a real jerk and he hates me because I'm this. None of that's true. Whatever you are, you are. I may not subscribe to that. I may, as an article of my own faith, believe that is a sin issue, but my beliefs are mine and yours are yours, and we can coexist. And I've always believed that, whether it's a religious thing or even a political thing, right? We do that every day on this program, where I encourage people who disagree to call. So I think you're right on that one. Irrespective of everything, I try to give everyone the benefit of the doubt, humanity, dignity, respect. Occasionally, I may get a little rough, I think, especially on TV. I used to get really rough with Democrats back in like 2018, 2019. I used to do these debates on Newsmax, and I don't do them anymore. Maybe that's why, right? I might have been a little too out of pocket. But my point is, I think you're right that we haven't walked a mile in somebody else's shoes, and I don't purport to, right? We've had a caller on this program many times who calls us from Maine, who is transgender. She's been living, I think it's a male, born male, living as a female for 30 years. And charming person. I always enjoy my conversations. We obviously are on different sides of that issue, but we're not on different sides of humanity. And irrespective of what she is going through, I still treat her like a person. So I think that's what you were saying.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I respect everybody because I've had a hard time in my life with this. And so I sort of see it from the other side. And it's been ever since the Roman Empire and Greek. And,
oh, yeah. Listen, murder has been around since Cain and Abel, right? So that stuff, I get it. Lots of things have been around for a long time. If I went with doing everything that I wanted to do, I'd be in bad shape. And I'd probably be like 400 pounds. So, but I get what you're saying, and I appreciate your call. Godspeed to you, brother. I hope you call in again. And Joe in Salem, I'm making money with XRP. I don't know. Tony, sorry about that, brother. We're going to talk about that tomorrow. I know you got some good thoughts on this. Hasta la próxima, America. Take care. Good night, and God bless you. I'm Rich Valdez.